Welcome, welcome, welcome. Episode 19 of the PISCOPOD. Thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate your guys' support. If I don't see my normal bubbly ranting self, it's been a tough week up here in Canada. I'll be covering these things in the show, but for those of you that aren't living under a rock, I'm sure you've heard about that massive ostrich cull in British Columbia by the CFIA, our Canadian Food Inspection Agency. These terrorists that have been terrorizing farmers and food suppliers for decades, really. The ostrich cull I'm going to get into a little later. For the very reason is there's just so much to talk about in that aspect of what happened this past week up here in Canada. And I was going to start the show out with that, but I think I'm going to end the show with that, like I said, because there's just so much to talk about and so much to discuss. I don't know what to tell you, folks. Evil forces are upon us. And whether you're religious or not religious, it's not hard. Stevie Wonder could see that there's something afoot. I've never been a very religious person. I'm becoming closer to God, I think. For the very reason is there's trouble brewing, and other than spiritual forces of evil that are upon us, I really don't know how else to articulate what's going on. From the gender ideology stuff, the cult-like insistence that our kids be exposed to it, to massive immigration all over the Western world, because it isn't happening in Muslim countries, it's happening in the Western world. And I mean, they've been, friends and allies within the Muslim world. And I'm in no way saying that every Muslim is a terrorist. I am not saying that. But I will tell you that every terrorist is a Muslim. Fact check me on that. The lion's share of them are. The Islamists, they've been telling us for decades, they've been warning us exactly what they're going to do. They're going to come in under refugee status, and they're not going to assimilate. They're going to outbreed us. They are going to out-immigrate us, and they are going to take us over. If you think I'm full of shit, open your fucking eyes and look around. Look at the UK. Has anybody seen what happened in Birmingham last week? Google it. They've officially taken over Birmingham, England. So an entity, a kingdom that has been alive for centuries, alive, flourishing, has given us basically what Western civilization is, has been taken over in less than 30 years because liberals all across the world, primarily white liberal women, who have nothing better to do than, pop Xanax and pretend that they're on this moral pulpit and fighting for the little guy, they've officially just sold us out. It's happening everywhere. There's police that won't go into certain areas of France. The police in England, they are, for lack of a better word, corralling white Christians and putting them in, they call them safe spaces, but they're basically pens. Now, I know that the anti-Trumpers are going to be, what's the difference between what's happening down in the United States with the illegal aliens? Well, there's a big difference. And the difference from how I see it is the fact that the people that they're rounding up and putting in these protective pens in the UK are law-abiding citizens, British nationals. I'm going to say the color white, but they're not all white. They're born Brits of all colors, but they're Brits that have assimilated to what Britain has stood for centuries. The invaders that their government has been importing, they are openly stabbing people on subways. I've seen a horrific video of a guy walking his dog that was stabbed to death for no apparent reason. Perhaps he had a big mouth. That's not what the video showed, but it just shows him walking past a Muslim or an Islamist, we'll call it. Walking past this Islamist, and the guy turns around, pulls a knife, and just brutally murders the guy. We are seeing this here in Canada, in Montreal. New Canadians, as we'll call them. The crime rate has been skyrocketing. Attacks on non-Muslims have been skyrocketing. They are going to Christian churches. I mean, let's not gloss over the fact that Christians across the world have been persecuted. Over 50 or 60,000 of them in Nigeria. I mean, the videos are coming out in 4K. They bury them alive. They burn them alive. And, you know, where's the protests in the streets for that? It's just not happening. So it makes you wonder, what the fuck is going on, folks? And how much longer are we going to sit and lay back and pretend that the people that we voted into power are going to take care of things for us? I mean, look at New York. Say what you want about Zoran Mamdani, but as I said in my previous episode, he has numerous pictures that he proudly displays on his social media where he's like arm in arm with terrorist sympathizers. The guy that was a character witness for the first World Trade Center bomber. He's arm in arm and, you know, touting him as such a great citizen. And this piece of shit literally runs the biggest mosque in New York City. But if you say anything, in the UK, in France, in Germany, where thousands of Islamists went to the Christmas market and were shouting their fucking Allahu Akbar bullshit, going through a Christian Christmas market, or not even a Christian Christmas market. Let's just say it's a Christmas market, right? Because lots of faiths, you know, celebrate Christmas. I know, I know Muslim people that buy gifts for their children and stuff like that on Christmas. You know, it's just a holiday that's celebrated all over the world. And, you know, these parasites are walking through these Christmas markets and harassing people. It's in their Quran. You know, they're allowed to harass and strike fear into the infidels because that's how they take over. The burning of the churches. Again, I know Muslims that pray at work. They have like a designated prayer room. And they go there, pray peacefully, for lack of a better word, so they can literally practice their religion anywhere. We even placate them by supplying private areas where they can practice their faith. But no, you see it all over the world. We are seeing it in Montreal, where large gatherings of these people are like praying on the doorsteps and the properties of Christian churches. And, you know, anybody that says anything about it or goes down there to protest it or whatever it is, basically just standing up for their right, they get arrested or they get ticketed or they get warned that they're harassing and that their presence, is triggering. I mean, we're living in fucking bizarro land, folks. And don't kid yourself. These people aren't praying on the doorsteps of Christian churches because that's where they want to pray. They're praying on the streets. They're blocking traffic. They're doing this as a show of intimidation and a show of force. Don't kid yourself. And if that makes me an Islamophobe, then I'm okay with that moniker. Because a phobia is basically designed or defined as an irrational fear of something. Now, don't get me wrong, because I'm not scared of these parasites by any stretch of the imagination. But let's not get gaslit into saying that Islamophobia is an irrational fear of Islamists. Because all you need to do is a Google search, open your eyes, and look around what's happening everywhere in the world at the hands of these people to know that our apprehension of these people and Western society is not an irrational fear. I mean, even the UAE leaders have been warning us for decades of what these people are doing, what they're planning on doing, and what they're doing, like, right before our fucking very eyes. There's evil afoot. And it's not just the Islamists that is the evil afoot, because they are part and parcel with the liberal government, with the libtards that are like, oh, free Palestine, all these fucking lowlifes that have nothing better to do, don't do any research or educating themselves into what they're talking about, and they're just out and about, and we are the bad people. We're gaslit into being the bad people. I'm okay with being called an Islamophobe. I really am. I'm also even okay with being called a racist. Racism sucks, but if speaking the truth makes me a racist, then so be it. I guess I'm a racist then. What else can I say? But evil forces are upon us, folks. Our Supreme Court of Canada. I don't even know where to begin with these demons. They, as I mentioned in my last episode, they have struck down a minimum 1 year sentence for people sharing and possessing child pornography. They thought it's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional to hold child predators in Western society to account, but to inhumanely kill 400 ostriches that very well could be the future of natural antibodies and research without any testing, without any morals, or even the semblance of any morals, that's okay. But child rapists and sexual predators, we got a case here in Canada where the guy is fighting with the courts because he is going through the system for soliciting a 12-year-old girl. I don't even need to say what he's soliciting her for because you guys can draw your own conclusions. But he's petitioning the court that he and his lawyer, a Canadian, is also, running cover for him. He's petitioning the courts that he wants to get a lighter sentence so that he doesn't get deported. And they're looking into it. I mean, seriously, what fucking world are we living in that a soon-to-be, if not already, convicted child predator has the right to say, hey, you know what? I don't want a heavy duty sentence because that might cause my deportation. What else did our demon court do here in Canada? Well, let me tell you, they prevented lawyers from wearing poppies into court. So, for those that are, again, like living under a rock, November 11th is Veterans Day, I guess, in the United States. And we call it Remembrance Day up here. And, I mean, ever since I was a kid going to school and stuff like that, about a week before Remembrance Day, the Veterans Associations and the Legions and such, all across anywhere that I've ever been here in Canada, they have poppies that go for sale. So the funds go to the veterans and stuff like that. And, to, help with medical expenses, help with counseling for PTSD. It's just a tribute to those that laid down their lives and continue to put themselves at risk to defend our Western principles. But a judge in Ontario has banned poppies in his court because it is a political statement and it's triggering. Triggering to who? Guess. Take a fucking wild guess as to who is triggering. Again, evil is afoot, folks. Mark Carney, he's laughing at us. He was asked by a reporter recently about the pipelines, the ones that he keeps promising that are going to get built. And he basically just laughed in her face and said, oh, pipelines are so boring. You can go to my social media feed. I got the video up. Oh, pipelines are so boring. And then he went into this, what he thought was humorous. And he's like, oh, yeah, pipelines are so boring. Is that Danielle Smith on line 1 calling about the pipelines? Ha, 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 I better go and get that. Chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. These fucking devils, these demons, they're fucking laughing at us, folks. They are laughing at us. They are thumbing their nose at us, and they're basically telling us to our face and in public and by the state-run propaganda machine that we call the legacy media up here. They are thumbing their nose at us, and they're basically going, we're going to do what we want, when we want, and what the fuck are you going to do about it? And it's across the board. We have that oily sodomite, Fat Nenshi, here in Alberta. He's rounding up the nurses and he's rounding up the teachers and he's rounding up everybody just to go on strike, just to, right? Like he's the fat sodomite in their camp. So when he's not bent over getting plowed from behind, he's causing chaos and turmoil in our province, and he wants to be the leader of our province. They're running full-on smear campaigns across all platforms. And even, I'm a huge supporter of Danielle Smith, but I even see her waffling now on this separatist movement. Now, I have friends that are telling me, it'll never happen. And that just might be the case. But, stop being such a fucking stick in the mud and, let us cling on to some hope that things are going to get better. Because if this continues, I fear for Canada. I fear for Canadians. I think that it'll break out, at least here in Alberta, into a civil war. I mean, our prime minister knew that he was most likely facing a non-confidence election coming up in the new year because of his abhorrent budget of more mass immigration, more printing of money and spending it, bringing in more voters for him to hold on to power that are unvetted. It's basically totalitarianism in broad daylight and in public view, and they're laughing at us because they're like, what are you going to do about it? Well, folks, I don't know what to tell you, man, but I'm ready to do something about it. Whatever it takes, right? You're either gonna be called a racist and die being overrun by these parasites, or you're going to stand up and be called a racist, but fight like the third rat on the Titanic in order to get aboard. Evil is afoot. I don't know how else to explain it. But what I'll do is I'll do some plagiarism here, because I posted something on my socials this morning in regards to, what's going on here. And this was written by a proud Canadian, a lady by the name of Tasha Rosignol. And I mean, if she's listening, my hat's off to you for speaking the truth and doing it so eloquently and articulating yourself so well. So instead of me paraphrasing, I'm just going to read what she posted, which basically sums up what I think a lot of my brothers and sisters, at least here in Alberta, if not all over Canada, are feeling. And what she wrote goes as follows. Can you imagine the absolute injustice and insanity in putting all your energy towards discrediting a man advocating against corrupt government? She's meaning Pierre Poilievre, okay? Can you imagine defending a government that mass migrates millions of refugees into Canada without proper vetting or infrastructure? Can you imagine supporting a government who brought in 17,000 plus known criminals in an effort for reform? Can you imagine giving lenient charges and sentences to those immigrants who commit crime on Canadian soil to help them evade deportation? Can you also imagine moving in such a vast number of refugees that it collapses Canadian public sectors like education, healthcare, affordable housing, and contributes to homelessness? All true. She's not lying. The statistics have shown that visits to the food bank have doubled. Canadians are working. The government is dipping their hands deeper and deeper into our pockets, and we have nothing to show for it. And as a matter of fact, we can't even, when we say, wait a minute, maybe we should pull the reins here a bit. No, then we're gaslit into being evil people, and we should be, our bank accounts should be frozen. We should be fired from our jobs. We should be ostracized from society. Let me continue reading, because this is really good. Can you imagine supporting a government who is sending billions of dollars to Ukraine for war when Canadians are eating from food banks in record high numbers? Can you imagine supporting a government who's unable to negotiate fair tariffs, so it supports instead a $75 million ad campaign meant to target the country that you're unable to negotiate tariffs with, which swiftly ending our trade agreements altogether? Also, not lying, complete truth. Can you imagine supporting a government who refuses to put minimum sentences on child predators? Can you imagine teaming up with a country that during your election campaign you publicly stated was Canada's worst threat? Can you imagine then aligning with that country proven to have interfered in our Canadian elections? That's what's happening. Carney's in bed with the fish heads in China. Can you imagine supporting a government who spent millions and millions housing refugees in hotel rooms when Canadian veterans, women, and children are homeless? Can you imagine supporting a government bragging about making deals with China and within days tons of illegal drugs enter Vancouver ports from China. Can you imagine supporting a government that's inability for fair trade and development of Canadian resources has led to thousands of job losses and hundreds of businesses leaving Canada for the USA? Again, this lady is not lying. Everything that she said is true. Can you imagine supporting a government whose fiscal watchdog has publicly stated would collapse Canada if changes weren't made because the current spending is unsustainable? Can you imagine supporting a leader with over 100 conflicts of interest and 95% of his personal stock portfolio of investments is invested outside of Canada? Can you imagine supporting a leader who's made moves to benefit Brookfield 42 times since becoming Prime Minister? Also, not lie, truth. The same Brookfield that Carney helped to avoid pay $5.3 billion in Canadian taxes, if we're keeping count. Can you imagine defending such people? Who are you actually defending? Because it isn't Canada, folks. What a powerful statement from this lady, and all absolutely true. So this circles back to when I'm saying in my podcasts that these enemies aren't just the government. These enemies are our neighbors, our friends that continue to vote in this government because they just have such a, in the States, they call it Trump derangement syndrome. And here in Canada, it's the same syndrome. They just hate the progressive government so much that they'll do whatever it takes to keep them out of power, even if that means ruining our country, even if that means hardships on their friends, family, and neighbors. They just don't care. They've been gaslit into believing that this is the way to progress. And all indications are that it's clearly not the way to progress. I mean, is anybody out here listening to this? Are you better off now that the Liberals have been in power for over 10 years than you were when the Conservatives were in power? Are any of my American friends really under the delusion that things were better when Biden and Harris were in power as opposed to what Trump is doing? Gaslighting with the illegals. They're illegal aliens. They shouldn't be here. And if they're not willing to relocate home, they call it kidnapping. I've never seen kidnappers send their kidnappees home. And this is rampant. I don't know what else to tell you, man. It's crazy. But I would be remiss if I didn't end the show with what everybody's been talking about all over social media, and that's the ostrich cull in BC. Again, don't kid yourself into thinking that this was like a safety issue that the CFIA, for my American friends, that's the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, a group of power corrupt, I don't want to call them Nazis, but they are a power corrupt bunch of deviants that have been running ramshackle across Canadians' farmers' lives for decades and decades. So if you haven't been following the ostrich cull or you haven't seen it, there was an article written in 2021 about this ostrich farm and how they are doing testing which could eliminate viruses through natural antibodies. Now, it doesn't take, it doesn't take a genius to figure out who would benefit by not having these tests and natural antibodies available to humankind, right? Big Pharma. Who else, right? Who else would rather get billions upon billions of dollars in funding in order to make viruses that they can poke you with when, instead of, some people that have pet ostriches on a farm in BC that are running tests, by all indications that could have ended like things like coronavirus. These poor people that own this ostrich farm, they voluntarily let the CFIA onto their property. And I'm going to share a story with you here of a gentleman that's coming out that has been silent and has never talked about the CFIA until this ostrich cull. But I'll go into that in a bit. So this family let this government entity, a government entity that has supreme control. They lay the law in the labs that are doing the testing. They set the standards and precedences of how they operate. They are an entity, by lack of better word, that's completely autonomous. They don't follow any rules. They make their own rules, and they will enact however they see fit, whenever they want, whatever they want. And again, just like our liberal government in charge, their attitude is like, what the fuck are you going to do about it? Here's what we're going to do. And what are you going to fucking do about it? So they let this agency onto their property because they had, out of a huge flock of, I think it was over 500 or 600 birds originally or whatever like that. And these are prehistoric birds, right? So they've been, their DNA is coursing through their veins since before man walked the earth, right? So they might have some answers in their DNA, in their blood, in their biological processes. I don't know. I'm no expert in this. But these articles go back all the way to 2021 that the research that was happening on that farm was instrumental to humankind. So they let this agency onto their property by their own free will. It wasn't a court order. They had, a couple of years ago, they had 69 birds die of bird disease. Nobody knows, nobody has come out and specifically said this is what it was beyond a shadow of a doubt, and just keep that feather in your cap because that goes into my story that I'll be sharing here shortly. So they did PCR tests on these birds. Now, if the name PCR test sounds familiar, it should be, because those are the same kind of fucking tests that they did on us during the COVID pandemic. And for anybody that went to see a doctor or ran these tests and stuff like that, the PCR tests statistically were questionable at best, consistently giving false positives when no false positive was actually present. Continued retesting needed to be done. But those are the PCR tests that the CFIA and the president and their bootlickers in the Supreme Court, those are the tests that they used in order to inhumanely slaughter this family's bird collection. 400 of them from all indications. Now, the CFIA, they could have had a vet come in, I'm sure, to, administer a lethal dose of something in order to cull the birds. Again, that's not what I'm advocating for here, because I think the entire cull was complete fucking bullshit. It was a show of dick-swinging power, just like the Supreme Court, just like our liberal government. They exude the vibe of we are going to do what we want, when we want, and there's fuck all that any of you are going to do about it. So they could have done this in order to, you know, rid this particular bird population. But no, again, don't kid yourself. This was a dick-swinging psychological operation to show that we are in power and your opposition and your fighting will end up in blood. You're not going to win. We're going to do what we want, when we want, how we want, where we want, and you're not going to do fucking nothing about it because there's nothing that you can do about it. So these bootlickers and these demons, they set up a kill pen with hay bales. They brought in snipers that set up fancy little tents that they could hide behind. And they basically, not basically, they literally, with the world watching, with the family of these birds watching just beyond the kill pen, well, not watching, but listening, proceeded to shoot these fucking birds through the entire night. Again, you know, I'm not going to post it on here, but you guys can go onto my social media feed. I got videos of literally hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of shots fired. So they basically corralled these fucking birds and executed them one by one. Not humanely, because witnesses that stayed there the night said that after the shooting stopped and daylight came, they heard more shots, which means that some of the birds were still alive, and they basically had to finish them off. And when one of the ministers of agriculture in Canada was asked about it, she basically said that, well, this avian flu and stuff comes every year. So my question is, if it comes every year, why would you have to cull these birds? Because everybody that knows anything about this avian flu knows that these are land birds. They don't fly. So they're not going to be spreading. If they're going to be spreading avian flu, it's going to be amongst the herd and not amongst, say, the chicken farmers in Canada, which would also profit from the fact that, natural antibodies can be tested and perhaps recreated, right? But nope. They just shot the birds. The owners of the birds and their supporters, they were willing to pay for tests. The Supreme Court, again, swinging its dick. Nope, sorry, you're not going to pay for tests. This is what we're going to do, and there's fuck all that you can do about it. It's horrific. I still have these images playing in my mind because I watched it. Much to my dismay. It's heartbreaking, but you have to force yourself. You have to watch this, because turning your head and looking the other way is not going to do anything. It's going to garner them more power. And again, don't kid yourself. This was a fucking display of power. They could have done it. They could have transported the birds somewhere else and done it. Nope. They set up a kill pen. They tortured these people for weeks and months. And then here's how much power we have. There's nothing that you're going to do about it. So you just sit back and listen while we just shoot your birds like fish in a barrel. Where is PETA? Where is the people for ethical treatment of animals? Where were they? Didn't see them anywhere. Didn't see any of their PETA websites, blowing up talking about this. It's just a fucking system stacked against us, folks. And how much longer are we going to let these fucking devils run our fucking lives into the ground and then get us to pay for it? So, I mean, it's horrific. I feel terrible for these people. I feel terrible for the people that had to watch it. Of course, the RCMP bootlickers that were, on hand to stand guard to keep the protesters at bay. People were filming, and of course the RCMP came with their legalese about you can't be posting pictures of these officers because doxing them, that's illegal and we'll arrest you, right? So they just game the system against us. You can't do nothing. You want to speak up and you're speaking up against injustices. Well, we'll just fucking change the fucking law and we'll fucking arrest you for it. That's what's going on. You know what used to happen to governments that ran like that? The citizens used to drag these people into the streets and cut their heads off. That's what used to happen. Or hang them because they were treasonous. This government doesn't represent the Canadian citizens. I implore the Trump administration to declare the Liberal government of Canada a terrorist organization. They don't represent the citizens. They openly mock and laugh us. These are the same people that celebrated the Charlie Kirk murder. We got again. Go onto my social media page. I have all the police officers that were there posting. The one blowing kisses to the family after the killing was done, and she was, I guess, I don't know, changing shift or whatever, smiling and blowing kisses at him. I mean, what kind of fucking people? What kind of fucking people do we have in power, man? That are running. That are in charge of our laws, that carry guns. These, like what's happening? And when are we going to fucking grow a pair of balls and man up and fucking do something about it? We are losing Canada, folks, in a big way. And it doesn't frighten me. What frightens me is that so many of my friends and neighbors and associates just stand by and wait for what, a fucking miracle to happen? Are we gonna, or are we gonna stand up and fucking do something? Are we gonna fight this tyranny? So, yeah. So if I'm not my usual bubbly self, it's because this week has been a fucking horrendous week, man. Horrendous week for all of Canada. I mean, I don't know how else I can articulate myself other than that evil is afoot. And we need to rise up, and we need to rise up in a big way and start defending ourselves from this tyranny. They want our guns for a reason. And it ain't because it's going to keep our streets safer. Because anybody with half a fucking brain knows that the criminals are never going to stop carrying fucking guns or obtaining guns. So it makes you wonder, I wonder why the government wants to take fucking the citizens' ability to defend themselves from law-abiding citizens that have never committed a crime, have never committed a violent crime, have never had a notable gun offense. Why do they want to take our guns? And I'm going to tell you why. It's because it's our last ability to stand up against the tyrannical, authoritarian government that's coming for us from every direction. Every fucking direction, I mean. And all you have to do is open your eyes and look around. Folks, we need to fucking rise up, we need to organize, and we need to show these motherfuckers who they work for. Once and for all. I'm tired of oily sodomite Nancy drumming up the fucking war drums and strike teachers striking. So basically holding parents hostage, right? Because, in Alberta, things are so expensive. Most people have both parents working. So what better way to hold the parents hostage than, I guess your kids can't go to school for 8 weeks or 6 months or whatever the fucking case is. And are we going to allow this any longer, or are we going to stand up and fucking show our mettle? So, folks, I'm going to leave you with this. It's a quote from a Russian author, Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And he says the line separating good and evil, it doesn't run between the classes. It doesn't run between the races. It runs through every person's heart. And that's a powerful statement. And when you correlate that with everything that I've been talking about, it's not hard to see that the evil that's running through the hearts of these people that have perpetrated last week on the Canadian citizens. You know, the RCMP, who, yeah, they're doing a job. It's my job. Yeah, well, that's what the Nazis used to say too. That's what the SS officers in the that were leading the Jews into the ovens and putting them up the chimneys. They were like, yeah, that was just my job. And it didn't sell back then. So what has changed that now all of a sudden that these bootlickers, yeah, it's my job. No, your job is to be a protector of the citizenry, not to be a goose-stepping monster keeping the family and owners of these birds at bay while the government, again, swings its dick and publicly executes these birds in front of everybody. And again, if you don't think that this was a display of power, fuck, you're sadly mistaken. Sadly mistaken. Anyway, folks, I wish I had better news. I don't. I hope to have better news, hopefully in the future. I have my doubts. But the story that I'll leave you with was a fella named Grant Alexander, who hasn't spoken publicly about his ordeal with the CFIA until this bird call happened. So let me give you some bullet points on this gentleman's story, okay, regarding this, I don't know, like what do you call it? What do you call an organization that just fucking makes up their own rules, does whatever they want, and if you're in the right and push back, they'll just fucking ruin you. Anyway, here's a story. Grant Alexander, 1989, March of 1989. A beef farmer, cattle farmer, sold his cows all across Canada. I mean, all across Canada, and in 30 U.S. states. So, significant operation. He sold a breeding cow to a farmer in North Carolina. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Happens all the time. And in order to do so, he started doing all the export tests that is required by law, right? When you're sending livestock and stuff like that, obviously. The CFIA touts themselves as to being the regulatory agency to make sure that these cows aren't diseased and causing like worldwide, mad cow disease that would cripple our food supply, for lack of a better word, I guess. So he started doing these export tests, and a day later, after registering these tests, the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, shows up on his doorstep and informs him that his herd has been quarantined. The next day, they show up and they have a chute. They run 689 of this gentleman's cattle through a chute, and they drain blood and tag them and tattoo them. Less than 24 hours to 48 hours later, the farmer, Grant Alexander, was informed by the CFIA that he has to arrange cattle trucks so that his entire herd can be loaded up because they were going to be culled due to brucellosis, mad cow disease. So, being a compliant citizen and trying to obey the law, much to his dismay, he did this. A week later, after his cows are all dead, he found out that the tests all came back negative. All of them. Not some of them. All of them. 689 cows, all tested, negative. Killed them for nothing. So, there was pieces of the reactor cow, we'll call it, which is what the CFIA used in order to act their, to get their boots on his throat. Was pieces of this cow were sent to all the agricultural labs throughout the world. Numerous upon numerous tests that were done by independent labs throughout the world that are in charge of their area's safety and agriculture. Every one of the tests came back negative. And again, I'm talking about every one of the tests, not just some, every one of the tests. Let that sink in. They took 689 healthy cows and destroyed this farmer's livelihood for nothing. So, understandably, this guy's upset, is looking into alternatives and asking the CFIA that how is it possible that, the day before the cow tested positive for the mad cow disease, and then like a couple of days later or a couple of weeks later, once all the worldwide tests came back negative, how's that happen? And he says that's when the problems really started. This farmer was labeled as dangerous with the CCA, and the CFIA president and its cronies went out of their way to try to ensure that this farmer was never allowed to raise livestock again. Basically just, taking a guy who spent his life doing this and going, yeah, you know what? Because you're asking too many questions, we're going to fuck your livelihood for the rest of your fucking life. Luckily, the president of the CCA and farmer, Grant Alexander, luckily they were friends. So, of course, this didn't happen. So he was looking into suing the CFIA. When the CFIA got word that he was seeking legal ramifications, they personally called him. And basically told him that, let me backtrack a bit. A wealthy businessman in Eastern Canada offered to pay all this guy's legal expenses in order to take the CFIA to task and to court. So like I said, once the CFIA got the smell of this, they started harassing him. The president of the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, called him up and in no uncertain terms told him that he controls all the labs, he controls all the legislation, and he's going to lose because he makes the rules. And if he continues with this quest for legal ramification, that he would crush, was the word that they said, that he would crush this family, their livelihood, and anybody that's ever dealt with him. This isn't a free country, folks. This is Canada in a free country. So one of Grant Alexander's beefs was that the CFIA was using grossly outdated compilation values and testing values, 15 plus years old. People that were in support of this farmer, including some members of the CFIA, which were, of course, swiftly fired, showed that there was numerous new data going to 2020, 2021, 2024 in previous cases of the mad cow disease that would have basically, if not saved his cows, certainly would have given him a stay of execution for a while. So, again, the CFIA, in this dick-swinging power move, and in order to get him to stop his legal resolution, they ended up killing a total of 12,000 cows across Canada, because they went to everyone that he had sold a cow to, everyone that he had dealt with. They went to every one of them and destroyed the herds. They then wanted, because he was a cow processor, so of course he sold bull semen and stuff like that. They then tried to get the courts to demand that he releases the names of every farmer or entity that he ever sold that herd semen to. Of course, because they were going to go after those people as well, in hopes that they would, gang up against this poor farmer, in order to get him to stop his legal process. It didn't work. The harassment didn't stop there, folks. They called this family and said that they now had to destroy all their pets on the farm, all their dogs, all their cats on the farm, because, again, some bullshit, dick-swinging power move. And this is where Grant's father stood up. He said, you better dig a bigger hole then, because if you're coming for my pets, you're going to take them over my dead body or over your dead body. And they ended up dropping that cull of his pets. But you kind of get the idea of where this is going and how these fucking demons work. They don't care. They don't represent us. They don't represent what we stand for. If they did, the majority of people would dictate how the government operates. They don't. They don't give a fuck about us. They run under impunity, and they do what they want, when they want, whenever the fuck they want, to who they want, and they're saying and showing us through these demons in our Canadian Supreme Court that there's nothing that you can fucking do about it. What are you going to do about it? It's the bully. It's the bully scenario in school that, I'm going to take your lunch money and I'm going to beat you up every day. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Well, we all know how the best way to take care of that school bully was that he got the shit kicked out of him and beat to a fucking pulp. And then that bully either was put back into factory reset mode, or he diverted his attention to other people that he could fucking bully. So the moral of this story, folks, is very simple. Are we going to sit back and are we going to take it up the ass like this from our government? Or are we going to stand up and fight like the third rat going on to Noah's Ark? Did I say the Titanic before? I meant Noah's Ark. Anyway, folks, I'm going to leave you with that to mull that over in your mind, man, because the fight is coming for us. I don't even say that lightly anymore, because it has come for us, man. Open your social media. Look around. Google France. Google Germany. Google the UK. Look at what's happening there. Look at what mass immigration is doing all over the world. Look at these governments that are fearful and circling the wagons and changing legislation in order for them to hold on to power, man. It's coming for us. It's at our doorstep, and it's time to lace your fucking boots up and show your mettle, folks, because, I don't know about you out there, but I know many of my friends, myself included, man, I'm not going to die on my knees with this oppressive fucking government's boot on my throat, man. If I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out swinging, man, and I'm going to do whatever is necessary in order to fight for my family, in order to fight for my freedom, and in order to fight for my autonomy. Anyway, folks, thank you for tuning in. Like I said, I wish it was like a happier conversation, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. And I hope that I'm waking some of you up. Thank you for your support. I've been getting some kind messaging. The trolls have seemed to have subsided because I guess they see that I don't give a fuck. Go ahead and troll me, man. It doesn't matter. So thank you for your support. Share this far and wide. Hit the subscribe button. I think it's in this corner here. Again, thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in. And we will revisit everything next week. So be safe out there. Talk to your family about, what you guys want to do to prepare for the battle that's coming for us. Because it's coming. Don't kid yourself. It's fucking coming. So, again, thanks for your support. Share this, like this, subscribe to this, and we will talk to you next Sunday. See ya!